Kalshi and Polymarket are coming for the girlies. They're coming for the girlies. I have seen so many advertisements over the last week or two of ads specifically targeting women.
April summer for Swifties, guessing what Taylor and Travis's wedding dates will be like. We asked 50 people, do you think Taylor Swift will have her wedding in New York?
I hope so.
Yeah. I would say yeah.
I doubt it.
No, I don't think so.
I think so.
Kalshi and Polymarket have also been going on a massive campaign to specifically target women to use their platforms. According to this Atlantic article, there was an ad that specifically had an influencer stating, "Girl math says if I can make $10 predicting real life stuff, then the coffee was technically free," right? They're specifically using the tropes that female influencers and their audience would be familiar with to promote their products. However, I must be crystal clear that there is a significant concern among myself and other health economists that these platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket are a public health crisis. I actually have a grant looking specifically at the impact of sports betting and the legalization of sports betting on mental health and addiction. But we do have limited research that demonstrates that increased access to online sports betting is associated with declines of self-reported mental health. And this is primarily among younger individuals who are men, right? Because sports betting apps and sports, primarily their watchers are men. And so these apps tend to gravitate themselves towards a more male audience. And while we don't have economic evidence as of yet, because there's not been any studies done that look specifically at online sports betting's impact on other areas of mental health, we do know that problematic gambling has a significant societal cost in the form of increased car crashes, increased crime, as well as increased overall bankruptcy. We also know that people who develop gambling addictions also have an increase in sleep problems, as well as an increase in alcohol use. And similar to the studies I mentioned on online sports gambling, these impacts to problematic gambling are primarily felt among young men. However, the concern of these apps, Kalshi and Polymarket, and they're trying to appeal to women, is that some of the negative mental health impacts we see for online gambling could be felt by women because of this direct appeal. Right? Women have mostly been sheltered from this impact of sports gambling simply because they are not the primary audience and target. But once you make them the primary audience and target, what happens to their mental health subsequently? And one thing I want us to consider is that these online prediction markets, as well as sports gambling apps, their predecessors, are a relatively new phenomenon, right? Online sports betting wasn't legal in the United States until 2018, when the Supreme Court struck down the law that prohibited sports gambling. Since then, 38 states have legalized online sports gambling or retail sports gambling, depending on the jurisdiction. However, Polymarket, right, and Kalshi are not sports betting apps. They are actually prediction markets, which means they exist in all 50 states. The concern, right, is that even though Kalshi and Polymarket, I think, are considered widely by the general public as a derivative of different types of gambling, Kalshi and Polymarket are not regulated like these sports gambling apps under their state gambling boards. They're actually considered under federal law as legal derivatives rather than gambling. So they receive regulation, and they are regulated by the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, which is actually suing states like Kentucky and Minnesota to prevent them from inducing statewide bans and regulations on these prediction markets. And again, what's really interesting is that Kalshi and Polymarket, by not being under the jurisdiction of these state gambling boards, and in some cases are able to bypass the restrictions that exist still in some states, it means they are not held to the same regulatory standard as sports betting apps and other forms of gambling, right? In certain states, there are a lot of regulations about advertising and marketing of sports gambling, as well as financial controls, right? Restricting the use of credit cards on gambling deposits, for example, right? Kalshi and Polymarket are not beholden to those regulations. And again, like, what does that impact on individuals like men and specifically women that they're targeting on mental health, on the public health of the community? Those are questions we really need to ask ourselves at this time. Anyways, there's a lot of really fast-moving development on this front. I'm happy to talk more about it in another video. But for now, that's all I got. As always, if you have any questions, let me know.